Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Proline. Jim Feist is here. John Cranton is here as well. I'm Dave Coken. We've got some great games to look at in the NFL this weekend. Big game, I should say. The Broncos and Patriots, the Sunday night matchup. A lot of people looking forward to that one. I know I am. And, of course, the Cowboys and Giants. Look, it might be the NFC East, but this is still a big football game. The Giants have won 4 games in a row. The Cowboys, always dangerous. We'll talk about those games. Before we do any of that, though, we've got some great stuff to tell you about. A bit of promotional material here, and I'm going to start with myself because I've got one of my big games this week. This is one of my 3 biggest annual plays in college football. It's my game of the year, which already took place, my upset of the year, which also already took place early in the season, and now my mismatch of the year. And this game has been tremendous over the last 12 years. It's 9-3, and here's how confident I am this year on the game. Because I don't think this game's going to be remotely close. And, you know, if you've watched this frequently enough, you know I'm not a big hype guy. None of us are, really. We don't yell at you, oh, we're going 80%. You know, we don't do that stuff here. I love this game. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a guarantee on it. Forget about covering the spread. I'm going to guarantee that it covers the spread by at least 2 touchdowns. This game's going to blow the number out. Guaranteed this cover by at least 2 touchdowns, or you get the rest of the college football season free, and obviously there's not much regular season left, so that includes the bowl package as well. So you're going to be playing the rest of the college football season free if this game doesn't cover by at least 2 touchdowns. $25 to get the game, and in addition to that, the sooner you sign up, the sooner you start getting bonus plays. I'm going to build that bankroll for you, so you're going to be playing with house money by the time Saturday rolls around. I'm on a real good roll with the top plays. Last weekend, Colorado State, Baylor, I won't say no problem with the Baylor game because they were down early, but no problem at the end. Colorado State dominated their game. Top plays are rocking and rolling. Get into this now. 1-866-896-1629. That's 1-866-896-1629. And I actually read the price wrong. It's $20, not $25. It's $20. So make sure and call right away. John, Mr. Vegas has got some good stuff going on this weekend. What's happening there?
That's right. Mr. Vegas is off a big win with his dog game of the year in college football. That was the University of Houston. You can get a full week of action in all sports from Mr. Vegas. It's college hoops, NBA, NFL, and college football. It's going to include Saturday's college football shocker of the year. 7 days for $15. 1-866-896-1627.
You know, Jim, you've had a real nice year in football. But it turns out it's not just football. 23-14 running the NBA, 26-14 on the pucks. This is turning into a nice ending to 2013 and a great beginning for some clients this weekend because you got a 5-play countdown going on.
Dave, that's right. But I'd be remiss to not mention that last week was my first bad Sunday in pro football, and everything seemed to break the wrong direction. We do win a lot more than we lose, but when we do lose, I think it's only correct to mention it because we're not going to sit up here and say we win games when we don't. But we're going to bounce back in pro football. We're going to bounce. We don't need to bounce back in college football because we're doing okay there, and we've been doing great in pro football except for the blip on the screen from last week. You mentioned the NBA has been absolutely remarkable. The NHL has been remarkable. We got 5 plays this week on Saturday. 5 plays go for $25 along with a high roller bonus. So make the call. It's 6 plays. 1-866-841-1655. $25. You get 5 plays on Saturday and a high roller bonus as well. We've been doing very well this year. We do make profits for our customers, and we're going to continue to do that right through not only this week but the rest of the season. 1-866-841-1655.
All right. We always have a Twitter question of the week, and I have to tell you, they've been good questions this year. This is a really good question. We'll get to it in a second. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Jim Feist Sports or at Facebook. Friend us at Proline TV. And this came from Greg Lamont in Chattanooga. And it's just a good question. The Oklahoma-Baylor game moved from 11, actually I saw even lower than that on the opener, to 16. And the Bears-Ravens total has dropped like crazy. It's gone down like 7 points from the opener. And his question is, were those really bad numbers, and do the books get hurt when a line moves more than 3 points or has a great deal of line movement like this?
Absolutely.
On the line movement,
Absolutely.
Sure. I was going to say, on the line movement, maybe not as much on those first numbers. I wouldn't pay as much attention to those because a lot of those are soft openers and low limits, and it doesn't take that much money to move the line. But when these lines keep on moving, like the two you've mentioned, and it's after the opening number already took a hit, that means it's a lot of money, and it's often sharp money. So absolutely, the books are at risk on these games, Jim.
Well, there's two different stories with these two specific lines. First of all, the Baylor line was a terrible line. It opened up soft, as you said, which is like a $500 bet. But when the guys, I go in there and bet 5,000, the game was already, higher than the opener. But the Baylor line was a horrible line. And they got stuck with that. I don't know where it came from. I don't know how the lines are actually made. I'm sure there's a bunch of people talk about them like the old days, and they just come up with a consensus and lean to one way or the other. But that was a bad line. The books did get hurt on that game for sure. The other game, the Bears-Ravens, that's really kind of unfair to say that was a bad line because this game opened up 47, went down to 40. I bet the game under because I saw the weather coming in, and I took it under the 47. The problem with this was, even though there was 60-mile-an-hour winds, tornadoes, everything else, there was a 2-hour delay in there. The storm sort of passed. They came back. It was okay. They scored a couple extra points. Then the winds picked up again that slowed it down. But it was kind of an aberrational situation. The odds makers had no way of knowing this was going to happen. When they made the line, which is like on Saturday, Sunday for the following week, or Monday the latest for the following week, they didn't know about the storm. That condition came up a little bit later in the week. We took advantage of it early. I sent it out to my customers early so they could get under the bigger line. As it closed, I think a darn thing, like it says here, 40. Obviously, the game went over that last, so went under the early number, over the late number. So they had two-way action on that. That's not always good for books because a lot of people that took the under could bet the over and get a middle. I'm not sure that really happened, but that was not an odds maker problem. That was more of a weather situation. The first one, Baylor, was definitely a terrible number, and they got killed on that one.
Right, and we'll see what happens in that game because that game, of course, is one of the featured games on the schedule this week. We're not the Bears-Ravens game, of course, done. I'm still unhappy about that game. I had the Ravens. I pushed at +3. If I'd have waited, I might have gotten a +3.5, but I gave it out at +3 and betted at that number. And we'll never know, but I think the only reason that game got to overtime was because of the rain delay. The Ravens were in control before that 2-hour stoppage, and of course that doesn't guarantee that they would have stayed that way, but I like to think they would because that's the side I had. We're going to get to the Cowboys and Giants now, which is, look, the NFC East is obviously not what it's been this year, but the rivalries in this division still create some tremendously exciting games, and there's a lot on the line with this game, John. I mean, the Giants are right back in this thing. They've won 4 in a row, and even though they're 4-6, that puts them in the middle of the race in the NFC East. If they can win this game, they got a shot to make the playoffs. If they don't win this game, the season's probably over. I think that's probably going to cause a lot of action to gravitate to the Giants. Don't know if that's the correct move or not.
Yeah, it's a fascinating game for those reasons. When I take a look at the Dallas Cowboys at 5-5, keep in mind that they've not been very good on the road, just 1-4. That's one of their weaknesses, although they do have a winning spread record on the road, 3-2 ATS. But the thing is, just this team has been erratic. Just look at the last 4 games. Great defensive effort. They beat the Eagles 17-3. Then they have a horrible defensive effort. The Lions beat them. It was much higher than that score, 31-30, as the Lions rolled up 600 yards. Then they beat the Vikings. Then they bounced back with a terrible game as the Saints beat them up. So it's a team that we've known for years. We've questioned the coaching staff. This is another example of it. Up and down play is often a sign of weak coaching. Now, the one thing about Dallas that is impressive, though, is Tony Romo. He's quietly having a great season. 21 touchdowns, 6 picks. Really has had no running game to help him out, so it's all been on his shoulders. He's been very good. He's got great targets in Witten and Bryant. Cowboys are a very good bounce-back team, 4-1 against the spread. Now, the Giants, boy, have they been erratic, too, losing the first 6 and winning 4 in a row. But here's the thing, Eli Manning, he really has not had a good year at all. 12 touchdowns, 17 picks, weak offensive line, and no running game to help him. And when these teams met in week 1, Dallas scored 36 points and won because of 6 Giant turnovers. The way that I'm going to look at this game, though, would be the total. We hear that there's some bad weather back east. When the Cowboys play on the road, they're 11-5 under the total. And this Giants defense has been playing pretty well these last 4 games. In fact, overall, they're on an 18-7 run under the total. So, Jim, I'm going to look at a lower scoring game in this heated rivalry game.
You know, this is a situation where the Giants are going to be playing a pretty good quarterback this week, and that hasn't been the case lately for them. They were on a 4-game win streak, and as Dave brought up earlier, these are marginal clubs so far in the NFC East. Now, it really comes down to who's playing the best the last month of the season when they get into the playoffs and they can run the table. I mean, that is possible. We've seen that happen before. A few years ago in Seattle, Pittsburgh, Arizona, teams that were not doing great in the first part of the season all of a sudden got hot at the right time. That can happen here too. All these guys can do the job. Philadelphia's hot right now. The Giants are hot right now. Dallas is wishy-washy. They will never be a great football team as long as Jerry Jones keeps his nose in the football pie. That's a waste of time to even talk about that. Romo's doing well. Of course, Washington, RG3, he's just a baby in a big suit. That's what that guy is, and he needs to grow up a lot. But so they're not going anywhere. That's part of this division. But it comes down to these other 3 teams, and this is going to be a good game. Now, in my opinion, this would be a very high-scoring game normally. Even though there's a trend to the under, this is such a big game. I think you're seeing everybody's coming out with everything they got. The problem is the windy conditions. 20, 25-mile-an-hour winds are projected. And when the winds hit that stadium, it swirls around. It's very hard to throw the football. And these teams are terrible running teams. They both average under 100 yards per game, so you can't look for much production there. So I have to go along with you, John. I think the under is the right play.
Well, I'm going to take a small argument on the running game portion of the Giants. It was a really bad running game, but now they've got Brown back. You know, he's put up 181 yards in 2 games. He's a good football player. So I think that changes their dynamic a little bit, and I think it makes them a little more balanced on offense. We'll probably cut down on Eli Manning's turnovers. Excuse me. Actually, it allows for the Giants to be a little more conservative offensively, because now they can run the football some. That's really important, because Eli Manning is a good quarterback when he doesn't have to throw the football all the time. When he does, that's when the quarterback problems happen for Manning. That's when the picks start happening. So I think that explains somewhat why the Giants have played better football the last 2 weeks. One of the wins that they had early, the first win, in fact, against the Vikings, was about the worst football game I've ever seen played in the NFL. So I don't even count that as a win. But the last 2 games, they played well. And, I know it was against Tolzien last week, but they still played a good football game on defense. Dallas is going to have to come in with a good defensive game plan here to stay in the game. They're not going to score a bunch of points in these conditions. It's not conducive to it. I think what you guys have mentioned on that with the high winds, to me, the way to play this game is the under and play it early. Because what's going to happen on Sunday, if this weather report holds up, is you're going to get a crush of under money, which means you'll have a good value at your number, and you might even be able to set up a middle, which Jim was talking about before. Now, that's part of what the pros do, is gauge where the lines are going to go, take advantage of it, and set themselves up for a possible situation where they can cash 2 tickets, maybe put a little more on one side than the other to eliminate any kind of a loss, but still set themselves up for a big payday. Nothing better than a middle. It's basically no risk, and if it hits, you're in clover. So that's the way I'd go on this. We're in agreement then with the under, and again, don't wait until Sunday. I don't understand why in this day and age people have access to only one bookie on a Sunday. You're just killing your chances if you do that. Okay, before we get to the next game, we got some business to take care of, and that's with our man on the street, Jeff Saad from LVSS. Jeff's got a great offer for this weekend and a free NFL total. Go ahead, Jeff.